Well, perhaps we can get started. If Zero shows up, we'll welcome him. And modify as needed. But we can start with roll call and introductions. So we'll go around for the commissioners or council member. Yeah, commissioners that are here. So Cammy. Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
I'm Campbell of Brown Sparks.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm here.
Excellent. Jason here. Robert
Here.
Aaron
Here.
Sharon.
Yeah.
And it looks like we don't yet have Zero. And is Tyler still on the commission officially?
Yes.
All right. And we don't have Tyler. That is all. So introduction, do you want to be introduced?
Oh, yeah, sure, I can do that. I'm Jennifer Crossley. I am the deputy clerk for communications and outreach. And that is the new position that council worked along with the city clerk Nicole Golden, and I am here just to observe and listen, because my goal right now, after I get through all of the appointments for boards and commissions, at least majority of them, whether it's with the mayor's office appointments and the council appointments, is to really start to do the educational component of my job that I'm kind of putting together, which I would love to work with the different commissions to really work out their mission statements and see what's working well, what's not working well, and how we can change that up. So this is my fourth commission that I am sitting in, and yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Zero.
Hello.
Welcome. So Zero here as well. Well, thank you for joining us. We've mentioned you on multiple occasions,
Yep,
so they
that's
joked
how
about.
I meet.
And if you
They
look,
joked about manifesting. me,
Yep.
but
So
here
look
you
at it,
go.
yeah.
So you're in demand and you answered the
Yes.
demand. Thank you. All right, I want to recognize Ash as well. I think it's important to recognize the critical support. So thank you.
Thank you, yes, it definitely is on.
Yes. And so next we have approval of agenda and approval of the memo / minutes. So do we want to take a moment to look at the minutes at all? Did everybody get a chance to kind of brush over that?
There actually were no minutes this time,
Oh.
so.
That's right, you
Yeah.
had mentioned that, so maybe look over the agenda. I know we circulated it beforehand, but if there's any changes anybody wants to make, we can do that now.
I move to approve.
All right.
Seconded.
So we'll go around voice vote. So to approve the agenda. It looks like is Zero drop out or?
Zero, turn
or-
off the camera.
Oh, it's done. Yeah, not. Okay. So we'll go around voice vote. We'll start on Zoom. Cammy?
Yay.
Zero.
Yes.
I say yes as well. Robert? Aaron?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Alright, so that's unanimously approved. So now reports. So co-chairs. You want me to start? You want to start?
You start.
Okay, I'll start. So Robert and I have been working well together, I think. He is entitled to his own opinion about that. But we've been talking about the committees. And I think this is a good balance because I have a seasoned perspective and he has a new perspective. But we are both kind of excited about what we can do. So we've been gathering different opinion or different insights and deciding about how we want to bring this new iteration of the commission together. Which is partially why there's a review of the mission statement, which is something that we did. And so I want to return to that again and see how we're not just coming up with interesting ideas, but ideas that meet the task of our mission. Yeah.
To speak, I want to thank Jason for helping on board me through all of this. I know I have a little bit of a deer in the headlights kind of thing right now, but getting ramped up. Glad that you're going to be working through onboarding us or continuing to all of the committee groups. And yeah, just coming back and being able to review, what we're going to do, reviewing the mission statement and getting to know how all of this process goes is really helpful for me. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we can move to individual members. So does anyone have anything that you been working on, or that you've noticed in relation to our commission and the work? Yes.
Just so everyone's aware, Robert and I met with Ms. Crossley as planned to talk about how to facilitate outreach. And essentially what we decided is that when the outreach committee decides who they want to interact with in terms of another board or commission specifically, that they would loop Ms. Crossley in so that she can then help facilitate, I guess, act as a middleman, essentially. Yep. So everyone's aware of that procedure.
Thank you. And I know at least in the two committee meetings that I sat in on, there was talk of collaboration, so it's good that we're pursuing that, right? Other individual reports? Yeah. Tammy?
I just wanted to report that I was appointed to the board of directors of South Central Community Action Program.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Tammy.
Thank you. And I was reappointed to this commission.
Nice.
Congratulations squared.
It's it's good that you're still with us and doing other work that aligns with the work that we do.
So do you know, Cammie, whether I was as well? I guess that would have been yesterday.
I don't know. I just got my letter, so it only mentioned me, so like it only told my information, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I had reapplied and I believe they dealt with that yesterday at city council.
Yeah, mine was a little while ago, so but I just found out, and mine was at the end of January, so.
Good to still have you on, and definitely good to think, to continue thinking about how we work together, and just a brief plug about recruiting, because we do have some open seats. So I know we talked about that, but that's good to think about. So I guess this can bleed into my individual report. So I reported just before we met, Zero cued us in to paying attention to House Bill 1662, which would potentially criminalize camping in public parks. And shortly before this, I work at Beacon, and we got the news from the director, Forrest, who went up and spoke against that. And he reported that that died. So that is no longer pending legislation. And to speak a little bit on it, I don't remember if you responded to all or just to me.
I've responded to all.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Robert had mentioned wanting to know what that looks like. I think here, having multiple strategies when we identify something we want to change, this kind of informs our work, because we all are participating as civic participants on a commission. But the fact that somebody who's the head of an advocacy organization wants to speak in the courts, and anybody with lived experience, that's what can affect things. So I know in general, when I talk to citizens of Bloomington, a lot of people express, kind of weariness with being able to affect governance at all. But there's multiple ways that you can participate, and I think this is an example of kind of in interacting and shaping what laws we grapple with, right? So I would say it's celebrating a win. And also, like, I'm not sure what Forrest said, but one of the things he said to us, it kind of informally, was that if a legislation like that passed, it could potentially put more people in jail. And so that certainly puts emphasis, so it burdens the taxpayers and systems. And so when we're thinking about alternative public safety, having not just focused on the issue at hand, but like the broader context, I think that aligns with the conversations that we want the community to be having, rather instead of just taking a position on a single piece of legislation. So I think it's good that that was in the public eye.
Yeah, and that would have made it that camping on a sidewalk a misdemeanor, which of course would have caused problems on people getting housing and that sort of thing.
Right, very good point. Any other individual reports? Then we can move on to committee reports. Do we want to go in order of how they met?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Zero, I think I could probably summarize it, and then if you wanted to jump in if I missed anything, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the notes you took there, you're gonna read those out?
Pretty much, yeah. So this will be with the research subcommittee. And the main topic of conversation for us was SB2, which dealt with the Medicaid and the HIP overhaul. You know, it is a Senate bill, and through a news article, which I sent in the sources and notes to everyone, is now going to the House. And I did not see any dates on the first reading while being in the House. So Zero and I talked, and we drew up a couple of action items. I think, you know, one thing that'd be important is to try and find out a schedule for, you know, how that particular bill process is going forward. And I believe Zero might be able to reach out to Tracy Hutchings Getz.
Yeah, I have an update on that from her.
Oh, good. You want me to just finish with the summary and then we can circle back to that? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically another action item is, you know, we're proposing, as far as the subcommittee here, is to make a statement to the city council in the next couple of weeks. We're hoping to gather numbers. We're hoping to source Tracy for some of those numbers, and even refer to Shelley Yoder, who I know spoke out against this particular bill. Another action item, and we may be able to get this done right now, is to potentially ask Ash if the CAPS committee could be considered a stakeholder in this process. Or if we're to go to the process to kind of represent as a stakeholder when they do the second reading part of the bill, if we have to represent ourselves personally, or can we represent ourselves as a committee or a city? And maybe that might require some research, but.
You want me to respond now or wait till you're done with your reports?
I think I'm generally done with the reports. Like in the sources and notes, I had some PDFs that did talk about the state house processes. Zero found another one. I think those are good to look at as we progress along with other bills in the future and maybe how to talk about those. So that's it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Still be the housing committee and such, but we might as well address this one right now. So the questions are, you know, whether we as a commission can weigh in on this kind of a thing, or what process that would have to go through. They haven't scheduled the next opportunity for public input yet. That's why we couldn't find anything. It's not actually been scheduled yet. And they have stripped out some provisions, the 3-year cap, which would have made everyone only have a total of 3 years on the program on HIP healthcare. So that has been taken out. It's been amended in committee. They still are putting a cap of 500,000 people in the program, which would shunt something like 168,000 people to a waiting list. So that's still an adverse part of it. It also still has, or it's been added, an advertising ban. This is something that Governor Braun had put forth as policy within departments, but it's been put into this bill that would ban not only government entities, nonprofits, but individuals from advertising Medicaid programs, that there's a program that anyone can apply to, or, you know, people that are eligible. So that's quite a constitutional question and free speech squelching. And one of the things we talked about that we'll go back to is the Navigator or Navigator app. And these are things that social service workers have to do all the time, is refer people into these programs. And it would seemingly criminalize anyone at all, letting anyone know that there might be an opportunity for them, that they may qualify for the Healthy Indiana plan. Another thing is, at present, the HIP part of Medicaid, HIP, is funded 90% by the federal. And that there's a provision, a trigger, that says if that drops below 90%, that the whole program goes down. So they put in language, this is one of the better aspects, kind of, that would drop that to 60%, so that the feds could cut another 30% down, because it's mostly handled by a cigarette tax, a hospital tax, and then this 90% federal. So it's not actually even anything that is costing the general budget or the taxpayers for this Healthy Indiana plan for the lowest income people. So
So wait a minute, did you just say that the federal government is threatening to reduce that to 60%? Or
no, this is a new provision that's been put into SB2 that drops it down to putting that at 60% before it would trigger the collapse of the program, instead of what it is right now, which is 90%.
so we would just renege a bunch of federal dollars. The state would just say, we don't want your money.
No, at present, it's still dependent on a 90% reimbursement from the federal, aside from the cigarette tax and this hospital tax. So it's kind of handled outside of the typical budget. But with the intimations that the federal is likely to be cutting Medicaid, that one provision is the one that kind of might save the program from collapsing should the federal drop it below 90%. But all the other aspects are pretty much still negative. And so it's going to take people off of the programs, put them on a waiting list, something like 168,000 people immediately. But the 3-year provision has been taken out, so it wouldn't necessarily wind down the program in 3 years. And then this banning of anybody even advertising or letting people know is something that would obviously, that's a lawsuit as soon as they pass it. But so it's still overall a bill that Hoosier Action is opposing, and that, you know, is basically putting barriers to healthcare on some of the lowest income and most vulnerable and disabled populations in the state. So, you know, citing those provisions as negative, as depriving people of their health care, possibly impacting their housing if they have to go into different insurance systems and they don't have enough money to afford it. It's just a way that a lot of people could be kicked down. So the question is whether we as a commission can weigh in on this. The other aspect is taking it to the city council, I guess, and maybe in the form of a resolution for the city council to oppose it. And so it's kind of the question legally on whether we can weigh in as one of the stakeholders when they do have another opportunity for public input. It may only be that there's like an hour's notice for that input to occur, but might be able to be done remotely.
So I
That's-
think that we have a question on the table for Ash that we were hoping to get potentially answered about that, to maybe move that forward or not, so.
Yeah, I can address that now or in my report time, whichever.
Either way, oh, it sounds like it's on the table now.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, in order to act as a body, you need authority to act as a body. Or at least, you know, usually, it's always safe to speak on behalf of yourself, as an individual, but in order to speak on behalf of the commission or any of its committees, you need authority to be delegated to you to do so. That can be done by motion. I think this goes back to the question, several months ago that the outreach committee had about having guidelines about, you know, who can speak on behalf of the commission, doing outreach and for what. So, you know, I think, in that instance, I recall the outreach committee was given authority by the commission to conduct that outreach. And say, we are the CAPS commission and we are talking to you on behalf of the commission as a whole. So I think something like that would need to happen. This body would need to grant permission to either an individual cast member or, you know, a couple of folks to act on behalf of the commission, if that is what you want to do. It's also always safe to, you know, walk up to, in a legislative session, if you attend the IGA's session and comment as a member of the public to say, I'm a member of the public and this is my individual name, and here's what I think. Always safe to do that. But if you want to act on behalf of the commission, you need authority to do that.
okay.
And so we could do,
Council,
I'm sorry?
authority from the common council.
No, from this body, itself.
Right, so if an individual is acting
Oh.
on behalf of the commission, we should have approved that.
Yes.
So you can't just go out to the community and say, I'm on the CAPS commission, I'm speaking on behalf of the whole commission, without us knowing.
It's a general practice for governing bodies in general, but also probably a good practice that you all want to keep as well.
And this provides a good grounded example, so we were talking about committees, whether we wanted committees or not, and the research seemed kind of amorphous, but if there's research that the research committee decides is important, you can talk about that, synthesize that idea and bring it back to this meeting of a whole, and then we can approve to say, yes, we think that outreach should be done on behalf of the commission. We authorize the individuals of the research committee to do that.
or the outreach committee.
The outreach, yes, sorry.
So if we decide during this meeting to deputize or authorize the outreach committee to prepare a statement, then we could move forward, talk to Jennifer Crossley, and be able to speak as the CAPS commission during public input.
If you prepared the statement, but the process would be preparing a statement as the committee and then bring it here, and then we would vote on the statement. So it wouldn't be authorization to entrust you with a statement that we haven't looked at.
You can do that, and then there's, I think also you could like make a motion to say, you know, I delegate this authority to this person. And then that person has that authority to do that particular thing, whether it's.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean is we could authorize it now. And it's basically just the summation of what I've broken down for you here, that this would be detrimental, would harm, vulnerable populations, and then citing these various provisions. And that if we could do that as the outreach committee, now authorized during this meeting, because I'm not sure, this may come up before our next full meeting.
So if you want someone to make that motion.
Yeah, so if someone motioned, I guess maybe me as an individual or us as the outreach committee, then me and Sharon, or I guess Cammie also, forget who said they were up for the outreach committee. Could then devise that and have it ready for whenever this public forum comes up again.
So sounds like someone wants to make a motion to delegate authority to the outreach committee to make a statement. Is that right?
Yeah.
And deliver it on behalf of the tax commission?
Yeah.
Okay, but, it's likely, Zero, is it likely that you'll have the chance to go to the State House and speak before our next meeting, before a month from now? I would think that, I don't think it's gonna be a session anymore.
Yeah, there's sessions going probably into March, maybe up to April. And like I say, we don't have the date yet, but it might be in the next week or so that there's another opportunity. Because it's already passed the Senate, so it's going to the House, and then there's this kind of conference committee reconciliation process. So there's, and I just talked to Kerwin Olson of Citizens Action Coalition, who's also up there involved in it. So I've talked to people that are directly lobbying on how this all works up there, and so there should be another opportunity. And I'm going to get into the system to be alerted directly whenever that is, and whether we do that in person or whether there's going to be any enablement of virtual.
So can we vote on a statement today, or is it not, you think it's not ready, or we have to have the committee meeting first and then do it by email? What do you think? No, we can't vote by email.
Yeah, we could vote now to authorize the outreach committee, or I guess from what Ash said, an individual, but figure we should do it as the outreach committee. And then we could meet as the outreach committee, prepare that exact language, inform the commission via email. And then basically it'll be ready for whenever this public comment comes up, which again, is probably going to be before our next full meeting. But I mean, we could
That's
convene
fine,
another.
but I feel like the whole commission should review it before approving it, before voting.
That's what I was thinking.
I agree.
Somehow, I don't know how that's gonna happen though. 'Cause
Yeah, well, we could prepare it right now.
Well, I know that there are other agenda items. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's why I said to just
Yes,
deputize
to speak
the,
as oneself, that might be the more apt thing at this point. With reserving, this method as in the future, if we can make a point in future agendas to look at pending legislation that's coming for that legislative year, and then what to act on. So in some ways, we're preparing more for how to act on it instead of just being reactive, which I know this particular year, a lot of people have been caught on their back feet with a lot of legislation that's been coming down. But it's a lot easier to speak as oneself if time is of the essence and there are other agenda items to get to.
Also, I think if it sounds like folks would rather have a statement prepared and then vote on it at a meeting, there's also, if there's not enough time to do that, you can always go to, the Indiana General Assembly or any other governing body and make a comment on behalf of yourself, and you can still say, I am on the tax commission, I don't speak on behalf of the tax commission, but I'm on this commission, I'm on this committee, I'm on this, I'm on this, I'm on this. And here are my individual thoughts.
Nice.
So they know that you're affiliated with these things, but that you're not speaking on behalf of the body. It's kind of a distinction.
I like that.
Yeah, well, but that's the distinction we're going for, is to speak as a body.
Yeah, but what we're saying is we can't approve a statement until it's drafted, and we won't have a time to vote on it afterwards. And so this, I think this highlights a question of process.
As Ash said, that, you know, you could appoint the outreach committee to craft the language.
Yeah,
Unless
but what Sharon had said was we well, Sharon and I also agreed, don't feel comfortable appointing a statement. Or commissioning the writing of a statement without the ability to review it or revoke our approval.
I agree with that too.
Right. And I think this highlights issue of process then, because it is very difficult to track upcoming legislation that we'd want to speak against. But luckily, we have a local example of doing such. Councilmember Courtney Daly called people together to track anti-trans legislation and to speak against that. And so there's kind of a working group, and we can do that as well. So the housing committee can track anti-housing legislation and stuff like that. Making sure that when we meet as committees that we're writing those statements or bringing stuff up to this meeting so that we can vote on things like that. But I think that's important work.
So it can basically be a sentence or two. We, the CAPS Commission of Bloomington, Indiana, propose SB2 because it will remove healthcare for some of the most vulnerable populations in the state. Immediately. So it will do that immediately as soon as it's passed.
Is that the statement that you want to vote on?
Yeah, we just keep it simple and basically the one sentence statement. The CAPS Commission of Bloomington, Indiana opposes SB2 due to provisions that will strip healthcare from 168,000 Hoosiers upon its passage.
Does anybody want a motion?
It sounds like Commissioner Rose moved
Okay.
to approve this statement and capture the statement. Does anyone have a second?
Can I add something?
Sure.
I think it might also be a good idea to say that it's unjust. It's unjust, it's something about not this ban on advertising or letting people know about their rights as a Hoosier, something like that. Sweet, I don't know. Do you want to just keep it very simple, or do you want to?
Yeah, that's why I'm keeping it simple, just so we can immediately approve it here. That we are in opposition.
Better to second that, all right. Does anybody have, so discussion proper, does anybody want to make a comment on this statement?
Yeah, I think that we need to really, and I know that many of us are new, but I think that we need to really try and deal, with these situations with subcommittees and try to make a plan and go through some of the agenda a little bit more. I think the last couple of meetings that I've attended, one thing that I've observed is we have not been able to get through it very much and very well. And I think that could lead to some cliffs and problems in the future. So I'm hoping, that also, as all of us are being reported as a committee, that, Jennifer can come back and help us with that to function better. And yeah, I'd really appreciate that. That's my only statement about that.
And as somebody who is seasoned, I would second that, that a lot of the things that trip us up, are, creating these committees and then doing the committee work in this meeting. So I like that.
Yeah, I was just, I'd echo what y'all are saying because, just an observation and just kind of looking, you were only still in the report section. And I know I can't stay and I have to leave here soon, and I was hoping to get to the mission statement business. So that if y'all had any questions or anything that we discussed, that I would be able to be here and talk about that. But yeah, you never want to be in a meeting and do the committee work in the meeting because this is the larger meeting. And then again, it's almost like it's the the KISS method, keep it simple, silly. I don't like to say that other word. But keep it simple, silly method where you want to stick to your mission, you want to stick to the goal of what it is that CAPS is doing. Is this considered public safety? Obviously, everybody knows like what's happening in the State House is bad, really, really bad. I can say a lot more words, but we are on cats and I'm not gonna go there. But that being said, it's almost like we kind of gotta bring it back to what we're talking about here and really think about what it is, like what you would do with this and going to go speak. How does that trickle down and translate to the work of CAPS right now? And how does that translate into the mission of public safety? Like, that would be my only thing for you all is does this help with public safety? If it does, let's talk about it a little further. And if we need to talk about it a little further, can we do this in a committee meeting? So that would be my only recommendations.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what we discussed in the committee meeting, and we're now bringing it here to the commission to decide on.
So do we want to vote on the statement?
Yeah, if I need to make the motion.
Motion was
It's been-
even seconded, so
Yes.
I have that.
Is that okay with you, Robert? Cause you're.
Yeah. And especially if it's been seconded, we should definitely vote on it. So,
Do we want to go around? Let's go around. So Cammy,
You're still muted, by the way.
Yes.
Sharon,
Yeah.
Aaron,
Yes.
Robert,
yes.
0.
Yes.
And me, yes. So that is approved. So the statement is authorized. So we can move on to the other committee reports. So I can report on behalf of the housing committee. So a lot of what we talked about was continuing the work that we've already been doing. So Zero brought up the report that was kind of overshadowed by the big alternative public safety report, which was a shorter report that was produced by undergraduates at IU through the START program, doing a comparative market analysis of what is effective in lowering the cost of housing by offering low-income housing. And the report suggested that offering things that were not just a percentage of units in the larger complex, but something specifically devoted would be helpful. And so we talked about potentially exploring that. Zero also helpfully brought up Hopewell and thinking about that. And we brainstormed some ideas and how we might report on whether the good ideas that are circling around Hopewell are actually being implemented in ways that benefit the community. So kind of a way of using our commission as citizen sensing to see if there really is more incorporation of marginalized communities who are safety marginalized. Anything
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, using students to collect the data to try to affect the process of how Hopewell is developed to provide more low-income options and for people without vehicles, people that have been priced out of the core, that a higher percentage of the development be rental and be devoted to those populations who have been displaced by the gentrification and the high prices, rather than the kind of emphasis on workforce affordability, which has been the emphasis so far. So that if we could apply some of those statistics on fallow units or unaffordability in the city in order to get this Hopewell development, which is a city nonprofit, it's exactly the kind of vehicle that that student report suggested would be prime to provide low-income units at a larger scale rather than just some small percentage as developers come in and want approval for a project.
Right. So we discussed that. We didn't yet come up with any actionable items, but we will continue to kind of work in that committee in terms of things that we can do. We did briefly brainstorm coming up with a new proposal to pitch to the START program or to talk to Suzanne, the director, about potential other ways of pulling in students. That's what we'll continue to pursue in that committee. And outreach is the last committee.
We had also discussed the Navigator type app scenario that Cami had brought up. I guess we maybe talked about that in the context of a couple of different committees, but to create some kind of a relationship with maybe informatics students, as well as that START program, to develop an app that would assist people in navigating healthcare, housing, social services.
Yeah, and I guess that could bridge housing and maybe outreach. What else did the outreach committee talk about?
Basically, we're teeing up the Stride visit that Sharon did. And then we discussed that we need to talk to Jennifer Crossley about things we do in terms of outreach and collaboration with something like the Commission on Sustainability.
And so both of those have moments later on in this meeting. Cool. All right, so we can move to, and that's all the committees. So now we can move to the staff report.
I quickly wanted to mention last night at the city council meeting, they approved an ordinance that changed a little bit of the code surrounding the tax commission. A couple of things changed, including 9. We now will have 9 voting members. They also changed the council staffing to provide general support for the regularly scheduled monthly meeting. To clarify that our support is for your regular meetings. That's not really being changed since I don't attend your committee meetings anyway, but that is now qualified.
Thank you for that. And now we can move to public. Do we have anybody on Zoom from the public? It's just Pat's.
No one from the public is on Zoom, it looks like. Yeah, these are folks on Zoom, which is basically.
Yep.
All of us.
Cool. And I think this is the appropriate place that where we can offer. Do you want me to say more, Jennifer?
So sorry.
That's
I
okay.
literally just lost my
Mission statement. No, what? That's new business, I know.
No,
Yeah.
so. There is, I'm sorry, what are we doing? Like, are we at the
Public comment.
public comment? Okay, I don't know if y'all need me to, so I'll just do this and then I'll jet here soon. The only thing that I was gonna say in terms of your mission statement, I was kind of going back as the deliberations were kind of happening. I'm kind of making some observations. I mentioned this to both Robert and Aaron, and my goal again is to work with all of the, commissions here to really just kind of dive deep into what it is that what's your work? What is your why? Obviously, you all applied for each of these positions because you saw something in this particular commission that draw attention, that drew you to it. And so why are you here? And what is the work that you're doing to keep you here? And to potentially attract other people to be in this commission. And so as I said before, I'm really trying to work through all the appointments right now. But here, my goal is almost complete here because we're near the end of February, is to do the educational component. And I have actually decided personally that I wanted to work with CAPS Commission first, as we are doing the educational component, to really try to dive deep into what is your why and what are you doing? And so just, because I think if we know our why and what is it that we're doing, that ties into technically code, because we kind of have to go through code and what, you know, what you is under your purview that you are allowed to do. That could also increase the efficiency of meetings and make you feel very productive while you're doing it. Because I don't want anybody to feel in all of the work that they're doing, oh boy, like this is really heavy, because we know there's a lot of stuff that's heavy right now and we get it. But what brings you joy and how do you continue to bring joy to this and like really working on that mission? So that, I would say my timeline for that would be mid to late March, early April. And so I really want to be able to come to your meetings and just kind of observe a little bit more. I'm actually going back and watching some of them to just kind of see like what is happening, what's going on. And I'm all for, if anybody wants to meet with me, and have any kind of questions, comments, concerns about anything that you're feeling or anything I've said that you agree with and you might not agree with, the girl literally and figuratively, we can all talk about those things. So again, really just trying to hone in and just really diving deep. And I'm doing this not just with CAPS, but all other, the commissions, the city's boards and commissions as well. Because there's a lot of uncertainty and I understand when staff liaisons have changed and whatnot, sometimes that knowledge, I'm not saying that with Ash, because I think Ash is great. And they're doing all that they can right now, especially with them being short staffed. So that being said, there's a lot of components that have left with staff liaisons, and we just need to bring it back to try to figure out what's been obtained, what hasn't been retained, and really trying to get better at that. So that was my biggest thing. So I guess my thing for you all, and I would provide your homework, is think about the mission, think about why you're here, what drew you here. Some of y'all reapplied and some of you have been reappointed or being considered for reappointment. Why do you want to continue this work? And how does that affect the local Bloomington and Monroe County community that you're serving? Because this is a pretty dope, like, commission. And I know that when it's first started, there was a lot of controversy that happened with it. And so this is now really taking it to the people and really doing that work. You've done, today I know the interview committee met and they were talking about a lot of the reports and different things. And there's been a lot of manpower. Like, because I don't want to be gender specific, but there's been a lot of work that a lot of folks have put into doing all of these reports. And so how do you get that report from just sitting on board to city council? And how does city council take it to office of the mayor? And how does office of the mayor take it to BPD, fire department, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, all of those things. But we can't do any of that until we kind of go back to the basic, which is, what's your mission? So that would be my ask for you all, is to kind of figure out those things. And then my hope and my goal is to be able to come back to your next meeting and we can kind of figure out what that looks like, as long as Ash thinks it's okay for me to do so. Public meeting, you make sense. I'm kind of meeting down.
We do have this goals and purpose.
Uh-huh.
statement. So are you thinking that we could change that, or we should?
You know, I think you can potentially, but I think you can also look at your goal and mission and then look at what code actually states what is the responsibility it caps. And then think about what the work is that you as an individual are doing and you as a collective body are doing. And think about, you know, are the things that we're discussing today, whether that means we're going to the state house or, you know, spending a lot of time talking about something that could be done in maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, like, how is that helping us? And so I honestly think, and I've worked in other settings and other meetings where sometimes it is really great to be visual. And so I'm a visual person. As I'm doing work, it gets me motivated. If you are in a room and you have something, maybe you write your mission and your goal on a board. So as you all are meeting, you can kind of go back each and every time that you're talking about something. You see it right there. That reminds you of your goal, that reminds you to stick back on or to go back on task. And that allows you to do what you need to do so that you can do the work.
Phoenix. Sorry.
So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's certainly important. And as a rhetorician, I've said in previous meetings that it is important to be able to cohere around something.
Mhm.
Because we all have brilliant and great ideas, but they don't all fit. We only have so large of a
Of
container.
course, of course. And I think the other thing is, like, I know the biggest thing that y'all wanna do is you wanna talk to maybe other boards and commissions to do outreach, because the biggest thing and frustration that I see in a lot of groups around Bloomington and Monroe County is this group over here is doing something that this group over here is also doing. But this group doesn't wanna necessarily share that information because we wanna get the award for this. And we see that this group over here is doing it, but we could really collaborate better. You know, we work in silos, and I think that is actually, like, if anything that COVID taught us, a lot of stuff, is like, we can do hard things, but it doesn't always have to be that hard. Like, you can work smarter, not harder. And so I think more people, could dig your mission and dig your goals into a lot of different things if they know, like, the work that you're doing. Right, so I think, like I said before, all of the reports and all of the like the work that went into creating all of the, you know, the things that were presented to council in terms of public safety. How do you get that into another commission? Does another commission need to have that? And then you also have to be very mindful and be very careful, because you don't also want to have that savior complex when you go to another commission, because speaking as a Black woman, you know, sometimes people come into those, you have your mission and I have my lived experience. And you come in looking like savior here and it turns people off. So you have to be very mindful of what it is that we're doing and how can we address those marginalized communities in a way that A, gains our trust, and B, make sure that they know that we are actually truly trying to work together collaboratively and not just because this is a checkbox off a quota that we need to fill. So, yeah. That's it.
Well, thank you for the tough reminders.
You know, it's hard, you know, on this, what, 20th day of Black History Month, we don't have much time left, but we still celebrate. But you know, that being said, I think, you know, it is tough, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Again, it's the keep it simple, silly method of really getting back to the basics and really reminding yourselves why you're here and what's your mission, and keep that work going.
And I would say that the housing committee that we've revived here in CAPS Commission has some common goals with the kind of what's also been dormant in the Commission on Sustainability to address housing affordability and that equity issue. And one issue we maybe should have brought up during the committee area was this green capital grant that the city is applying for. And they were looking for community partners. So they had asked the Commission on Sustainability, things like Beacon Inc. and I think the Bloomington Housing Authority and South Central Community Action Program. I think they've all signed on for this application that's, I think, March 5th that the city's going to do. And that's about directing renewable energy resources to what they call LIDAC, low income disadvantaged communities, which is part of our mandate. And so I think that's an area ripe for collaboration between the two commissions, and that will take us interacting with you, Jennifer, as how, we will interact back and forth as commissions. And in both of those commissions, that's kind of been a dormant issue. And I think that should be more to the forefront, and that can be a kind of a somewhat simple issue that we could get right on and get some statistics and data around that and put that forth to the city council and the mayor to try to get them to look more at that, like what we referred to earlier that the students came up with, that we need a concerted development that is providing lower income, easier entry, affordable housing, rather than just mandating a few units as developers come through. So I think that's an area that is kind of just what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and then I'm literally gonna pick up my computer and walk out now. I hear what you're saying, but if I go back and read the first part of the CAPS Commission goals and purpose, perform research and gather data on the perceptions and preferences about public safety from community members with specific focus on perceptions and preference, data gathered from community members, individuals who are disabled, other often marginalized community members, research evidence-based alternatives to traditional policing, identify best practice in public safety globally and evaluate the efficacy of such practices for implementation in Bloomington. And then, of course, making the recommendations to the Common Council, Board of Public Safety, and or mayor's designee. So all of that work is great. But how does that translate into that? Like, I can see it, but I really ask you all to really think about that and think, how does that work? Or is that just literally something that you are just really passionate about as an individual? And you can do that as an individual and not maybe as a collective whole for CAPS. That would be my view. And on that note.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, gotta run home for another meeting.
Words familiar.
It's so fun.
Oh, fun is one way. Fun is one end. Yeah, me too. All right. So that concludes our reports. So unless somebody wants a motion for a break, we can continue to go and get through this. All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the next item on the agenda?
The discussion of the stride visit.
Okay, just at some point there, if we could make a motion to decide about whether to sign on as a community partner with the Economic and Sustainability Department.
Yeah, that's a new business. Yeah,
We have to get through the other stuff first.
yeah.
Later on the roster.
So the discussion of the stride visit, Sharon, did you want to take that? Because you're a champion in setting that up and facilitating that, and
Yeah.
Robert and I can help.
I can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think I sent something out. I think I wrote something out and sent it out. So I'll just go through it quickly. So we went, it was Jason and Robert and I went and got a really nice tour. There were two social workers that gave us the tour. One was someone who works there now, who I think was gonna move to a different position with Stride, so she's not actually at the center anymore, and then the other person is in charge of a mobile unit. And they basically, Stride is a crisis center, but they do so much more. They do all kinds of stuff, like bringing people to the hospital and treatment centers and helping set up treatment. It just, they're a great community resource. And they also have this mobile unit where, if someone needs their services, a crisis center service, like if someone has an overdose or even a medical emergency or mental health emergency, they can call someone, they can call Stride and someone will actually go to them out in the county, which is a really good service. They're funded by Centerstone, and Centerstone is funded by, I think, federal dollars. Right, is that right? And they have a grant within Centerstone, so we're just hoping, they're hoping that next year they get the same grant. They do partner with the Bloomington Police Department and Fire Department. They're not like part of the police department, but they partner with them, and in fact, one of the people, I think the woman who was in charge of the mobile unit, told us that she declined to use a police pager. She didn't want to have that with her when she went to someone's house. But they have a meeting once a week with a lot of different organizations in town, so everybody knows what each other is doing. And then I'll just add, I was trying to think about how the CAPS Commission can help and support the Stride Center. And Jason had a great idea. I want him to tell you about that. The only thing I could think of was to support them financially. So since the meeting, I suggested to the social worker, another social worker that works there, that number one, she applied to the program, the like monthly donation program with Bloomington Food Co-op. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah,
Round
every
up for
month.
Blooming Foods.
Bloomington Foods has a charity that you can round up for, like it's the roundup program, and she said she would do that. And then I've been trying to get in touch with the managers of Target and Walmart to see if they'll make donations, and they are almost impossible to get hold of, but I'll continue that. And it's not, it wouldn't be a lot of funding for them, but if they do get it, it might be something, and it's something that we could put into a report. If they're successful, we could put it into an end of the year report for the council.
Kroger offers that too, along with Target, so that might be another
Good idea.
aspect for you. Yeah.
They said that one of the most needed things is men's shoes, for instance. They need men's shoes. They need dog food, donations of dog food. I guess maybe I could ask Kroger for that, or pet store. That's an idea. And then I noticed they use first aid supplies. We could ask for that. So these are small items compared to their overall budget, but
Thank you. And then because you signaled me, were you talking about the idea of support, something like that?
well, an app, maybe this is Cammie's idea also, to connect all these different organizations in town that are doing things like the Catholic services.
Bloomington Catholic worker.
Bloomington Catholic workers, Deacon, yeah, there are others.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was kind of touching on Cammie's idea in terms of something to develop. So Cammie's idea is was more an app for residents to be able to navigate the different things that are offered. But it's kind of similar to that, I suggested there could be an app on the back end for service workers or services that could coordinate that. So rather than having them pull pulling them together in synchronous meetings where they have to devote time and make sure everyone's schedules align, which is something that many different services already do. An asynchronous app could connect them, so that they could function together. And that was just kind of a spitballing an idea. Something else that has occurred to me, because we talked to them and then afterwards about mental health supports. I know that there are certain meetings that occur between, for instance, the downtown resource officers. They hold a meeting to make sure services are integrated. And that anybody I've spoken to that's attended that meeting finds it's very helpful. And I've heard downtown resource officers report on that and how that helps to promote safety and in equitable ways that we've been talking about. It's just maybe not transparent to the public. But thinking about how we had talked about Stride as a commission forever.
Yeah.
But we didn't know specifically what they did, and so. That visit for me, kind of opened my eyes to all that we don't know, even if we know they're a great organization. But I was thinking that, promoting more connections and more crosswork. And maybe talking about the people that are actually doing good work. Well, that's all I'll say about that. Robert, did you have other things starting this up?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's really more a public statement for people even watching at a later point of the recording. They do have cards that have a lot of their information on the Stride Center itself or the mobile crisis unit. That was also discussed. And so stopping by there, they're happy to give cards, and so folks can come over and grab cards and distribute them among, the shops or to people. And it's a good thing to have on hand. I've got a stack myself. So
Excellent.
yeah.
I got at least one. Yeah. Not yet, but yeah, definitely good. And a good reminder, like talking about just information. We often think we have to come up with these solutions to these big problems, but sometimes distributing information is a solution in itself. To an informed public, which happens to be a democratic value. I would say, from my personal bias, that visit was very eye-opening, and helps us to think about different things.
And I imagine they have some kind of directories. Some people could say that the 211 number is one way to get around to various services, with keyword searches as far as the person that answers on the phone kind of thing. But maybe some kind of a directory that we could prepare that would maybe stitch things together that aren't necessarily in this or that forum to make something that's a little more comprehensive as far as the community might be something that would be good for us to produce and be an item to, spread around, like you say, on a card or, have a website for.
That's a great idea. What's 211? Where does that get you?
That's a directory system like 411 information, but it's a little more, the people, they're pretty aware at this point, of social services, and you say where you are and what kind of services you're looking for, and then they basically transfer you to, this or that agency or website or information.
It's definitely an idea that, again, a good idea for maybe and actually proposing ideas like that, we could put that into the research committee, or the research committee could be paying attention. So we don't necessarily have to vote on them. The research committee can talk about doing something like that. But in order to get continue moving on the agenda, I want to now move to the discussion of bylaws, which is something that we've been working on for a couple different meetings. So what do you all think about the state they're in right now? Do we want to, I know the sentiment has been expressed several times that we want to vote on some, so we have some working bylaws. What do people think?
Well, the one thing that Jennifer just put forth is that talking about 9 voting members now, and I guess that means down from 11, that maybe there's only 9 members. So that's an aspect that would have to be rewritten.
I know I'm potentially putting Aaron on the spot, but I know that you had some good input at the last meeting about kind of trimming it up.
Oh.
Referring to actual, statute and things like that to kind of.
Right, I believe that it would behoove us to, instead of recite the current statute within our bylaws, to cite the statute rather than recite the statute, which means we don't have to change our bylaws every time the statute changes, which it just did. Which would pare them down greatly, and most bylaw sections would then read something along the lines of to be governed by Bloomington City Ordinance XYZ.
So would you say, boy, get this way back in December, when you sent the draft on December 19th, I mean, is that, you feeling that one still needs trimming up to be in line with that, or?
Give me
I
a
know.
quick
It's
second.
December 19th at 16:42. So I pulled up the email.
Yeah, I know, I see, that's exactly what I'm looking at. I see that you're on the same document that I
Right?
am.
Hey.
Yeah, I
know it
mean,
is
at the last meeting, I didn't get the impression that that was a direction that everyone agreed with, but if that is something that people agree with, then I'd be happy to change the language. And then we could vote on it again at the next meeting. I just didn't want to do that because I just felt I felt some pushback, so I didn't want to just steamroll everyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was gonna say, I think that would be compelling. That would be, I would like that. Other ideas? Some people agree with that? Yeah, and since at the end of last meeting, we suggested that we could all work on it, and speaking personally, I didn't touch it again. I think it would be more effective if Aaron wanted to take it on. I would be in support.
and I think. Yeah, I would support those too, and as far as we can keep in a method for amending the bylaws, which I know that you'd be conscious of, like,
Right,
I would be pretty comfortable
right.
with a lot of things that get put in there.
It's really just the sections that overlap with the ordinance, the municipal code that governs our entity. And the redundancies can cause problems like they do right now.
And I would say the redundancies could cause problems like they do right now.
There we go.
Yeah.
That broke me.
Ash disapproves.
Oh, it only took several years to do it.
The DORD, the Department of Redundancy Department.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. I can do that now.
Yeah, if everyone's okay with that, it's also my group project style to steamroll, so if that's okay, then I will do that.
Yeah, well, then I moved to allow Aaron to revise the bylaws and then bring them back to us for
Second,
approval.
I will do that as soon as possible. When is our next meeting actually? Because it's highly likely I may not be able to attend.
Next meeting should be March 20th.
Just kidding, I will be there. I don't have disregard, but I will amend the bylaws.
Do you need to vote on the motion?
Yes, we should vote. So it's been motioned and seconded, so I guess we'll start in a circle.
Aye.
Aye. Chair? Aye.
And I'll just say, if you can get them all to us before the meeting, we can.
Well,
digest them.
Much preferred.
yeah, we'll finish the vote. Candy?
Aye.
Zero?
Yes,
Right, Jason?
Yes,
Robert says aye. So it passes.
excellent. Talk about efficient work.
Next order, but we have,
I was gonna say maybe also schedule the committee. Maybe also schedule the committee meetings while we've scheduled the next meeting.
I know the committee meetings I've scheduled I've held the room on a regular
Yeah.
basis, so the next one is also March 19th from 2 to 5:30, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5:30.
Okay.
And the people who have taken on informal leadership roles in those committees, if you think that they need to be adjusted, then you can communicate with the committee. And so we can move on to new business. Is that what you have a gesture toward?
or well, or
We
being
missed
the
March
last 20th.
20th.
Oh,
Oh, no, the meeting is, never mind, our meeting's March 20th. So the committee meetings are.
I mean, we have now 5 minutes left to talk about new business as our problem at hand.
that's true.
So, and I don't even know if 5 minutes would be enough to talk about either new business part.
Yeah, so I guess it could be a meta commentary, in terms of, doing the work efficiently. So since we don't have enough time to fully devote, our efforts towards either, item in new business for the mission statement, since that's collective, and kind of following up on, Ms. Crossley's suggestions to us, I think we should all individually review the mission statement, keeping in mind what she mentioned, to think about the why. Why does this commission exist, and why did each of us want to be on this commission and the work that we want to do? And then when we return to the discussion on the mission statement, we can talk about how that drives our work or how it doesn't drive our work and how we need to adjust as a commission, right? Because ultimately, the review of the mission statement is laid out for us, but our work should follow that, what is in code and what is synthesized in that. And then in new business, just thinking about, or just talking about what you wanted us to focus, or what we want to focus on for that. Zero, I think you had proposed that item. Did you want to?
Yeah.
The importance of it?
Yeah, the CAPS Commission signing on as community partner. Basically, we just send our acquiescence to Sean and ESD to list us along with the other entities in the application that they're going to make for March 5th for the Green Capital Fund, which is getting $250,000 coming to the city to basically develop renewable energy and targeting that to the low-income disadvantaged communities that they acronym as LIDAC. So if we could vote on saying, yes, we want to be listed as a community partner, and to just send that on to ESD.
That's something we feel we need to have a broader discussion about.
So. The zero, the city is getting this money.
Well,
And then-
they're applying for it, yeah.
Oh, fine. And then. But they don't. Is there a proposal that they have to state? Like, in order to get it, that it's gonna be used for these purposes?
Yeah, that's part of the language of the grant is that it's to be devoted or focused, at least partly on low-income disadvantaged communities. It's mostly a consultation on the front end, and it's phase one that has to happen in order for them to get to a phase two of further funding to implement things like renewable energy, to do things like lower energy costs for these low-income disadvantaged communities, targeting it to maybe things like the Soapwell development or something like the Hill, like if they were going to solarize Crestmont or something like that. And I think us being in the group of community partners is one way to get in on that discussion and to maybe shape how that gets implemented down the road.
That certainly sounds like a good idea. Again, though, following up with Jennifer Crosley's comment, I think in reviewing the mission statement, we should think about the type of work that we're doing, right? And can't recall the word specifically, but thinking about how the work we do should be aligned with the mission, because as I think I mentioned in a couple of committees, we had been questioned by the city council when they reviewed us, whether we still exist, whether we are still serving the mission that they laid out for us to do. And there were some kind of nervous points that as a speaker, I had to answer to for why we did something that wasn't necessarily aligned with the mission. So as you review, I would personally suggest, not as a co-chair, but as an individual member, that as you review the mission, think about why, and aligning, reviewing the things that we're doing to align more with the why. So we can, we'll plan to return to both of those, the next meeting, so those will be in old business.
So that application is going in March 5th. So we need to decide on it now.
Okay.
It is toward part of what there will be doing is kind of consultation, research, and setting up for the second phase to get those directed to low-income disadvantaged communities, which is part of our remit, and it could also be considered harm reduction in that these renewable energy will cause less health impacts, which of course affect lower income populations more. And so it's also an issue of environmental justice.
Did you want to make a motion to vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody second that motion?
I would want to see something more specific.
I sent out the information to everybody. Did you not see that?
But I mean, our role in supporting.
It's simply being listed as a community partner on the application that the city is putting in March 5th. There are no specific obligations or anything.
Anybody like to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. So Robert seconded the motion. So the vote is whether we want to be listed as a community partner in the application for LIDAC. Right? So we can go around on Zoom. So Cammy?
Yay.
Okay, Zero,
Yay.
Sharon? And you can abstain as well,
I'll abstain.
okay? Aaron,
Abstaining.
Robert,
Yeah,
and, I will vote yay as well. So. That passes with the majority,
402, I think. Right,
4-0-2.
yeah.
All right, that's the last item on our agenda. So topic suggestions for future agendas is just kind of a filler. We've gone over our time, oh, we don't have to make a motion to adjourn.
You can, one of the co-chairs can adjourn the meeting.
Okay, I am a co-chair, I adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, all right.